So here's the basic pitch, and we'll cover some of the details. This tape right here is what 3M or Scotch calls the extreme application tape. I believe that number is 8595, but it's also wrapped inside of what they call their transparent duct tape, which is part number 2120A, because that has the UV resistance. The 8595 is not weather or UV resistant very well at all, so it will disintegrate if you leave this out in the sun, for any length of time, which my prototype has been. It's probably spent nearly 14 days just sitting outside in my yard being pitched, waiting for bad weather to come or whatever, or just testing various things. So it's seen a fair amount of use. I had to redo this part right here actually because my dog tore up my tent at some point, right before my trip, and I had to make some quick repairs because I didn't have time to redo everything. But it's just got a simple loop that wraps around the handle right here, and then just attaches by tape. You can see, hopefully, it's not too bright. Maybe if I stand there, you can see some reinforcements that I put across and down each of the diagonals to try to hold it on there. It's also got the 2120 on the bottom side along each edge. You can see right here, hopefully, which would be the best angle, but you can see where my dog really got into it. She got cut up in the guy line somehow. She totally bent the hiking pole, over about 45 degrees. But that tore all the way along right there, and so I had to do the best I could to patch it. I had to re-sew the mesh because it tore also. And but it's got that 2120 all the way along the edge. The guy lines, or the tie-out points, are simply just loops. The corners are a little longer. These are just half-inch out and made from that extreme application tape. But I've learned, just because it's not as weather resistant, which we can see back here, maybe. I don't know if we'll be able to get a good detail, but I noticed on this one in particular, you could see some of the tape delaminating. I got duct tape also on the inside of there, so it's not sticky on the inside. But so I wrap it all the way around. A little bit of sticky there, a little bit of sticky there, and you can see I carried it up there, and then I put a piece of the 2120 going across there to balance out the load, so the load wasn't only on this small little space here on the edge. You can also see where I tore some of the material when I tried to rip some of the tape off, because I originally had tried to tape the mesh to this, and hoping that I wouldn't have to sew it all, but that didn't work, so I tried to remove as much tape as I could. On the corners, it's basically the same stuff. I just made it a little longer, so if necessary I could put one of the Y stakes through the loop there if I needed to pitch it all the way to the ground. So right now it's just got the bungee cord is generally what I use. I generally don't pitch the back all the way to the ground. So as you can tell, it's already pretty darn close. These are 2 feet apart. The guy that originally came up with this design of using this kind of material put his 1 feet apart to try to, because he was using those very thin stakes like I mentioned. My really thin stakes go right here. But he was using them every 1 foot to try to increase the holding power and reduce the chance of fatigue on the material, because as you can see, anywhere you would poke it, it'll stretch a little bit just like a trash bag. You can see where my dog did some more damage. She had two big holes right there that I ended up having to patch up, and some claw prints. You know, her claws got in there, but they didn't tear all the way through, you know, in that location. You know, on the center one, I said that I use this big skewer. That's so I can get more tension on this line. This is where the two pieces join together, is right along here. On the inside, where it's not exposed to the sun, I use that extreme application tape, the 8595. On the outside, I coated it, I put a piece of the 2120 that is more UV resistant than most duct tapes are. You know, the tie-outs are all basically the same, but yeah, I wanted to keep the tension there, you know, on that seam there. So one, it didn't bow in as much when the wind blows, you know, and two, to keep the connection to the pole a little more taut. Let's see. Over here, I can tie out no problem with one of those little small thin stakes. Just to keep it from blowing in again. You know, if the wind blows, I mean, you can see the tent will give quite a bit, partially because I use bungee and all to try to reduce any stresses. I don't know if the bungee's really required or not, but you know, it seemed like a good idea at the time, that to prevent that from blowing in so much, you know, I could tie that out, and you know, it came out from under my foot. But it definitely gives you a little bit more room, because it's kind of cramped inside. That's about the only thing I don't like about this half pyramid kind of design, is it's very cramped inside. I ended up going with the zipper for the mesh, because I wanted to go with this snaps like Roger Caffin, or Cafin, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but used for his tents, but couldn't figure out how to do that since my pitch, you know, right now the corners are at roughly 80 inches apart, but when I pitch them down to the ground, they're only 60 inches apart. So even though I left a lot of overlap, since I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing, I couldn't figure out how to not have huge gaps, you know, if I was pitched down at 60 inches instead of 80 inches. So the zipper solved that. It didn't matter where I was, there'd be zero gaps. And then, of course, you know, you don't have a lot of room. That's why I use my dry ducks jacket covering over the foot of my sleeping bag, because I would sleep diagonally. So by the time I was down there and had my bag, I was basically touching, you know, the tent. So that's the main change I'll be doing, is maybe going to a little bit wider but shorter tent to have you know, like a 9x5 instead of an 8x6. It was just convenient because the material that I used, these heat sheets, came in a 6x4, so it was simple to make an 8x6 tent, you know, without only having one seam. But you can see that I did indeed go ahead and sew all the mesh onto the tent, and when I have the zipper down, I use one of those small stakes to go through the loop of the pole there and stake it to the ground so it can't move. You know, when the wind blows, the wind would blow it all the way in, of course, or out. You know, so that would kind of hold it in rough place, so wouldn't have it blowing in and creating a big gap underneath. So that's pretty much it. Oh, I forgot my storm door. The storm door is fit so that when it's pitched down to the ground at 60 inches wide, you know, it'll fit across there. I used the little swimsuit clips, and then have, I'm not sure if you can see them, but there's a little loop of tape right there that clip will just slide into on each corner, and then on the top I just have a snap that snaps onto that right there. So that will allow me to put a sheet of material across the door if it's really windy and blowing and that, and the wind's changing direction, to try to prevent as much rain from coming in as possible, because I didn't have a bivvy, didn't want to buy a bivvy. So unless the wind's blowing a lot, you know, the sides will blow out a little bit, but that door would still pretty much cover nearly everything, so it'd keep me relatively dry on the inside. So I think that's about it. So let me know if you have any questions.